Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. And today, well, we're going to work on an oldie but a goodie. It's actually in pretty good shape for the age of the reel. You wouldn't be able to tell that, I guess, if you didn't know the reel itself. But this is a Penn Senator 6.0. It's the 114, but it is not the 114H. And if reels could talk, you would wonder what happened with the harness lug. But this reel came into my shop because, well, the eccentric isn't working. It's kind of stuck over here on the side. And, well, we're going to show you the differences between this and the 114H, which is the high-speed model. We're going to show you how to take this reel apart and service it. And for the most part, the procedures that we'll use here can be applied against that 114H. The difference really is going to be in the size of the gears. And I suspect with this one we have the old asbestos washers in it. So we'll show you a little bit about that as well. We're going to start by removing the exterior pieces. We'll start with the handle and the handle screw after you remove the retention screw. And while I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like the art of how to service and repair fishing reels. If you like to learn how to service those reels, if you like to understand a little bit more about how those reels are used and who made them, well, this is what the whole goal is behind Second Chance Tackle. It's passing on what I've learned over the years, showing you how to do the service yourself and how to keep these reels fishing for a long time to come. And one of the things I do when I remove my pieces and parts, I like to clean them up immediately. And for this one with the tarnish on it and all, I'm using a automotive metal polish called Total Wax Chrome Cleaner and a piece of 4O, which is very fine steel wool. And well, it does a nice job there. And then of course there's a little oil port on this old handle here. Push it down, use an oiler and get some oil in there. And you can also put a little bit of a squirt of oil on the back end of this with some penetrating oil, and that'll help that just continue to spin nice and free and easy. We're going to continue then. We're going to take off the star adjuster next. And again, we'll do the same thing here. I just find that it's easier for me if I clean those parts as I take them off. Now, sometimes you're going to want to use something like an ultrasonic bath or something else where maybe you're going to just put all of them into some type of a cleaner. And if you do that, that's fine. Just remove them. But I expect that this will be fine for the purposes that I'm using it for. And not everything needs that. This one actually is in pretty good condition. It is a saltwater fishing reel, and there are some evidence that it's been affected by salt spray and the like. There's some light corrosion on it, but this reel is an older reel too. So just to have that kind of cosmetic issue, well, it's kind of interesting in and of itself. I'm going to just spray around the base here with some penetrating oil. Let that sink into the screw heads for a moment. And here's, we have an issue here with this bent harness lug, and sometimes you can simply just reverse it by kind of putting in a screwdriver and pulling up on it. Now, this is for a handheld harness. You would clip it on both sides of this and wrap that onto the harness belt, and it would be perfectly fine. I'm not sure if this is the side I fixed or if it's the other side, but okay, we're in good shape there. Very good. All right, we've had these things sitting for just a little bit on that spray. It's a good time to tell you a couple of things. The first is to have a strategy for managing the pieces and parts that you're going to remove from the reel. I use a parts tray. It's a fast food container. You can see some of the parts I've removed already are in there. That gives me a central location for keeping the parts and knowing where those parts are when it's time to come back and reinstall them. The second thing I like to tell you to do is to take pictures as you're removing critical pieces and parts from the reel. The reason I suggest that is even though the schematics for this reel is available, they're not available for all reels, and in many cases the only reference point you're going to have is what it looked like before you started taking it apart. So take the pictures that'll tell you a little bit about it, and then take some mental notes along the way. For example, on this reel, the crossbar screws are longer than the screws that go into the reel seat. So you want to note that so that you have it in the right direction when it comes time to reinstall. You might also notice that there is a washer here underneath the star adjuster. There was a washer on top of that star adjuster, but it's thinner. So just make a note of that. You might have the washers in the right place, but they're the wrong washers. So just make a note as you go along what belongs where, and it'll save you, well, save you some effort later on, because a lot of times the issue with these reels is that they've been put in the right place with the wrong part, and you just can't understand why the reel isn't functioning optimally. All right, these are the shorter screws that I mentioned. I'm going to put those in a different corner of that parts tray that you saw, just to keep them separate so that I know when it's time to reinstall where to go with these. This is an older reel. It has a cross post. It doesn't have a half frame. This is a reel that was made in the USA. So you'll see right on the little tag here, made in the USA. And if it doesn't say made in the USA, well, it wasn't. This is also a reel that you could replace the drag washers without taking the case off. That was one of the early features of this reel, and they moved to the point where you had to take it off later. This is a smaller main gear to it. We should be able to get this off now. A smaller main gear to it, and a lot of this looks the same as the smaller versions of not only the Senators, but most of the Penn reels of that age. Senators were among the first reels that Penn made, going all back to the 1940s. So a lot of design changes have happened. One of them was that they made a bigger main gear for this reel, a high-speed version of it, if you will. I'm going to do a couple of things here, and I'll just ask you to bear with me. I'm going to take the other side off and do a good cleaning of this reel. There's no sense while you're servicing your reel just to jump to the chase and try and get something done fast. You're only going to be doing this maybe once a year. That's kind of what I recommend, an annual service, unless you're really using them heavily. Then you might want to do it twice a year. But if you're going to do that, what's the extra 15 minutes over the course of a year? And the last thing you would want to do is lose a fish that you should have caught had you taken the time to do the service. So take your time, clean it up, and you'll be happy with the results, and it'll feel good when you're on the water. Right, there's two more of these, and as you're noticing, I'm taking the screws out, and then I'm putting them back into the side that they came off of. That's to keep the orientation of the crossbars on the right side plates. Now, you could, I guess, swap them around. They're universal, but I like to just make sure that I eliminate some of the potential issues, maybe with a bent bar or something. I'm going to leave this last one on. We're going to go back to that steel wool. And I grabbed, again, that's a Turtle Wax chrome polish. It's a metal polish for cars. Although many cars don't have anything metal to polish any longer. It's all been either plated in plastic or just eliminated. But overall, it's a good polish, and it's still made, and it's still available out there, and I would recommend that you get yourself some. All right. Nice sharp point on that beta alarm click. This is the back end of the bearing. And while I'm at it again, I'm going to just clean both sides of this. And the 4.0 steel wool, it's not that abrasive. It is actually a for polishing, so I don't worry too much about the effect it's going to have on the reel, and I like the results that it gives me. And you can see sometimes you just need to use a little bit more elbow grease there, and sometimes it's just some deep pitting that happened from years on the water. But overall, it's a nice looking reel for its age, and I would estimate the age of this reel at least 25 years old. I'm going to do the same thing here with these crossbars. Load up a little bit again. I keep a bar, I keep this base underneath. It was made by Cons out in Arizona. It's a channel viewer. Did a nice job with it, and you can see that, well, it keeps the project elevated a little bit off of my workbench. And it also keeps me from transferring a lot of dirt and debris to that bench. Although over time, I got to be honest with you, the bench certainly looks well used and well worn. We'll just call that character marks. All right, there's one more here. And again, these weren't very deeply pitted to begin with, and this is knocking off any of the burrs. You can see some here. My guess is that's the one that, well, when they were fishing, they were probably putting the hook on here as a storage device, right? Well, that's going to chip away at the paint eventually. So what do you do with that one? If you're just interested in the cosmetics of the reel, take the two that are the worst, that's these two, put them on the bottom. Put them down here. That's the least visible spot on the reel. And if somebody's looking at it, they got to basically look through the spool to see those two bars. Where's the other one now? There you go. So just put them on the bottom. I mean, it's your reel. What the heck? Do whatever you want to do with them. But I'm just saying, if you're looking to keep it a little bit of the bright work shiny, put them on the bottom. And if you do it right, you can hide it like that. It's hardly ever going to be seen. All right, just put the other three back on. I'm hand tightening. You can see I'm holding the screw on the one side here, just twisting the bar to get that set up. So the Senators were designed, everything from a very small 1.0 reel, which is kind of the size of a Penn 60 Long Beach, a couple extra posts, right up to the very big Jaws reels, the 16-aught, and I believe there was actually a 20-aught, but those would be extremely rare. Most of the big ones you see are either 14 or 16 in size. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. Later, after this video is done, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to remove all of this line for the customer. Right now, I couldn't remove the line because that eccentric is, well, it's locked in place there. But we'll do what we can do here now while we have this off the reel, and then we'll go back in. Kind of clean up the rest of that a little bit. Nice, good looking spool. There's not a lot of dirt or debris or breakage in that. That's a very solid spool, as is this whole reel. All right, last thing you want to do on this bearing side here, put a little bit of grease onto that bearing, onto the spool shaft. I'm going to lock this in. And just set that off to the side. That doesn't need to go into a parch tray. There's quite a bit of big pieces in there, and well, hard to lose something like that. If you're going to misplace that on your desk, you got bigger issues than what you can do with a parch tray. Having said that, I'll probably go and mess something up with that. You can see that there's more evidence of the salt corrosion on this side plate ring. I'm going to do the inside while we're at it, and there's less there, right? Because the water, generally, the spray is going to hit that spool and not hit this inner plate. But if you don't rinse your reels off at the end of a trip, well, you're kind of asking for trouble. That trouble will come in the form of corrosion, and it'll clog the interior pieces. And one of the things I'm impressed about with this reel is that it doesn't appear as though there was very much fishing going on with it. We've seen that because of the limited corrosion, and these inside pieces are very clean. They don't even show a patina to them. And again, this reel is not a new reel. We have to address the eccentric. That's back here. You can see that the spring is misset, or the eccentric is popped out. I'm not sure what happened there. We're going to remove the bridge next in order to get in there and check. I'm also curious whether we have the older version, the asbestos drag washers in this one, or we have the newer HT100 conversion. This one, I believe, uses the bigger washers, so it might be the 309s. I'm not quite sure which version of the reel this uses, but let's get underneath there. And when I feel all that I'm loosening and I'm pulling through on it, you'll notice that I've cupped my hand. The reason I do that is there's a dog and a spring inside there for the anti-reverse that I don't want to lose. Let's pull that up, and we can pretty much see the internal workings of this reel. There's two big springs. Those are your yoke springs. We'll show you how to install those in a moment. This is your jack. This is your main, your pinion gear and yoke. This is the flat spring for the anti-reverse dog, and make sure that goes right into the tray. This is the anti-reverse dog. And then we have our main gear. And on this side, we'll take those 4 screws out. We'll put those into the tray as well. And we'll go deal with this eccentric issue here before we do anything more. The eccentric issue involves the release lever on that side as well as the nut. And however this happened, it just sprung. This is in the correct location. This is in the correct location. This eccentric needs to be rotated. Sometimes you can rotate by hand. I know from my hand strength I can't do that. So I'm going to try and find my micro pliers. I'm going to work it underneath here. I'm going to grab it just like that. And bring this all the way back and around. And you will eventually find an even point where it's not going left and it's not going right. And that's essentially it. You can see on the other side here where we should be able to grab that at the balance point and put that lever on there. Now before I do that, I want to just clean, because as soon as I put that lever on, we're going to tighten that down. Yep, we're at the balance point. You can see it there. We're about mid-stroke. Now I'm going to put the screw on to hold that in place. That screw is the same as the handle screw on the smaller Penn reels, so you can use the Penn wrench to tighten that down. And now we should have a eccentric that moves up and down, that will move the jack in and out to provide the free spool. We have a beautiful, solid, heavy-duty, well-made gear set in this reel. There's going to be a lot of things that fail in this reel, but those gears almost should never fail. This is a winch. There's no other way to put it. You could probably pull up Davy Jones' locker with it. It is a low-speed reel. It's not the high-speed version, but boy, this thing is just as solid as they come. So if you're out there fishing plugs that need a high-speed retrieve, this doesn't work for you. If you're trolling, it works just perfect. Put some grease onto the shoulder after it's cleaned. Grease the teeth here. And if anything, this grease that was in this reel has shellacked and evaporated and disappeared. So be generous with the grease that you're putting back into the reel for this service. I want to do the same thing on this side, on the side bearing here. Go ahead and put some on that, and then put some on the spool where that will join later. Those two big springs go on each side. There's a cavity that they fit in. And you can take that yoke assembly with the slot facing out on that pinion gear. Grab the hook on this side, slip it under the eccentric. Sometimes you may need an assist if you don't have that hand strength. Pull that in. Make sure that it clears that stud there and that it's riding in the groove. And then you can release, and that is the setup for your yoke and jack and pinion gear assembly. Let's go take a look at what's going on here. Again, these are very solid pieces of engineering. Let's see if we can't get this gear shaft off here. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. this one's pretty tight. Let's try from the other side. I think we're starting to get some movement there. Yeah, I feel it. You want to take an awl, and there's a little hole. It's a starter hole. If you try it enough, you will push it out. If you need an assist, you can use a tap hammer. Just be careful, you might ruin the tip of your tool. And I would say this wheel hasn't been serviced in a very long time. Again, you can see the shellacking going on the bridge plate. And I'll use that cleanup again to get this done. And as Chris reminds me, go ahead and run a cotton swab on the inside here. And then we can re-grease the bridge shaft. This is the groove right here that pin is running in. That's what's holding the bridge shaft in place. I am using a tap hammer to bring it back. And you do want to make sure that you clear the ridge when you reset that pin. Sometimes I use pliers like this to pull it in, and we're in good condition. All right, the good news on this one is that this stack has been rebuilt. There's one more in here. Let's see if we can get it out. I believe these are Carbon-Tex washers. Lucky. The owner didn't tell me, but it looks like it's been done at one point, and that's good. So there was a conversion there. You are going to notice that there is a hard washer on the back of the main gear, and that goes on the sleeve there. That's going to separate your anti-reverse from banging into the main gear. Same thing, we've got the penetrating oil on there. Now we're pulling through to get the old dirt out of the channels of that gear. It's a beautiful piece of engineering. Stood the test of time. Look at that nice brass gear. All right, we're just going to do the same thing here. It's been a long time since this wheel has been greased or lubricated. Let's make sure we do our best here. If you didn't take that gear sleeve off, you could put some oil into the top of that. Since we removed it and greased it, we don't need to do that. All right, greased all the way around. Let's reset that on top now. Bring that down. Let's show you. So this was a conversion kit. We have 5 washers metal, 5 washers fabric. These can be greased, but they're Carbon-Tex, so they don't need to be greased. Let's start by one in the bottom. There's going to be 3 of these. They're called keyed washers, so they start with those. There's 2 that have the prongs on them. They're called eared washers, and they alternate. So second of those washers, and then this is the first of the eared washers that goes in. Another drag washer. Here's your second of the keyed washers. Another drag washer. This is the second of the eared washers, the ones with the prongs, and they fit in the slots in the main gear so that it looks like that. 2 more. One in. Cap washer. Another one. Top washer. And we have the 2 that are going to come up on the outside. This is a felt washer to get some oil on it. That faces down over the last washer. That's where we're going to leave that. Let's go ahead and install that anti-reverse dog and spring. We have the 4 bridge screws. 2 of those have partial threads and 2 of them have full threads. So we're going to select one of the ones with the full threads first. And we're going to put that in this side, which has the case stud on it. Let's go ahead and push down on that assembly. Bring the we're trapped here with this washer. Push down, bring your assembly in, mesh it with the pinion gear and turn it halfway. Bring a fully threaded screw over to the back corner where you find that stud. There's an angle facing up on this one. That will fall into the slot like that. This one comes pre-bent. You may have to get a replacement if you've lost the spring tension on it. But that is the spring and how it's set into that dog. Rides on top around that post and onto the side plate. Rotate that. Make sure that you bring your pinion gear through first so that it doesn't jam. And then a couple of turns on that screw so that you can lock that anti-reverse in place. Don't tighten it down all the way until you've seated all of the other screws. Take a partially threaded one, go up top on the other side so that you can balance it. A couple of turns. Again, don't bring it tight. You can come down low now. And then one more on this side. And once you have all of them seated, then you can tighten it down and do it in the reverse order. So tighten this one, go down to this corner, come over to this side, then go up to the other side. That's going to enable you to keep the right tension on this piece. We have our collar next, and we have that thick washer underneath the star adjuster. We're going to put the star adjuster on. There's two sides of this. One of them has a stamping. It says 10114. In this case, that faces down. And once you've locked everything in place now, you can go ahead and put that side plate on. The best way to put the side plate on is to put this into the gear mode. Like that, pull it all the way in. We've got the grease on the spool stud. Bring this in and then line the one that has the harness lug on it with that top crossbar. Remember what we said, there's 5 long screws and 3 short screws. The long screws go into the cross posts. I'm going to start with this one. I don't normally start with this one, but it seemed to line up pretty good. Sometimes you're wrestling with that, and I don't like to wrestle for the first screw to hold the side plate in and take the tension off my hands. So a lot of people chase the 114H, the high-speed reel, as a preference. I think they're missing something when they have the opportunity to get one of these. I'm going to take the short screw now and anchor the bottom part. And if you're having trouble aligning the holes, just use a pick to hold it in one of them. We need to just move over to another side plate. This is shaking a little bit, and again, if you don't have it stable, it does roll a little bit. So let's try and put one on this side. That'll keep the side plate from moving like a pendulum. And here's the example I was saying before about the hiding the defect if you just want to keep your reel looking kind of nice for everybody else. That defect is down here and it's facing inside on the line. So what's going on here? Okay, I went and found the nail set. Now I can put a little bit of tension from the inside, and this one should take it now. There we go. And once you set that top one, the other two should fall in place. So I'm going to stay with that small screw, lock this seat down. And we'll come over to the other side, finish that one off. And then we got a couple more. Put a handle on, give it a test. We'll see how we did. I'm excited about this reel. I like this reel all around. And it's just a beautiful example of some fine American engineering. People ask me about using a mechanical screwdriver on these. I don't recommend it. I found a lot of these are kind of fragile with the gap or the slot here, and that sometimes you can shear off one of the sides of this with the torque that those screwdrivers throw, and when they finish it, they just keep turning. And I've seen the lips on these get lost or butterflied. Just simply don't recommend it. Now, if you don't have any hand strength, I've seen examples where I haven't had the hand strength I would like on some of this reel. You go ahead and use that mechanical screwdriver, but do not finish the turning with that. Instead, leave it proud and finish it by hand the last 2 or 3 turns. So if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, just leave them in the comments section. I do try to answer those. And it doesn't have to be on this reel. It can be on, maybe you're working on a low-profile bait caster and trying to figure something out or understand how it works or whatever. I just had a question come in on the Penn 350 level line reel. I just did a video on that to answer the question. It was, how does this level line piece get serviced? What's the setup on it, and how does it work? And I was happy to do that. Okay, remember we said the thin washer is the one that goes up on top here. Oops, guess I left the thick one off. Thick one goes on the bottom. Thin one goes on top. Handle goes on. Gamexus makes a power handle for this now. Interesting, right? You got a company that's been around a few years making products for reels that have been around seemingly forever. I guess there's a market for them. All right, tighten down on your star adjuster before you complete tightening the handle screw. Then use your wrench, tighten this down, and you need to align the scallop in the screw with the hole in the handle. It's going to accept the nut or the screw that's going to lock it in place. That'll prevent the screw from coming loose due to engine vibrations and the like on a boat, and it will prevent the handle from coming loose as a result. Okay, what did we do? We took the reel completely apart. As we mentioned, the issue was initially that we had a free spool adjuster or lever that was lost. As a result, you didn't have free spool. Now you have free spool. Look at this reel. What can I say about these reels? They're just beauties, right? That's working. Now you want to, so we showed you how to reset that. We told you it's okay to use an assist there. Be careful. It's soft metals. You don't want to ruin them in the process. But gently use an assist, like we said, with the mechanical screwdrivers if you need to. Use an assist, but leave that last final tightening. It's a hand tightening just so that you don't rip these off. Just checking to make sure one of them look loose. That happens from time to time, so let's tighten all those down. Showed you how to service the drags. This one does have a conversion kit in it. It doesn't have the original asbestos drag washers in them. And we showed you how to set those up, alternating the keyed washers with the eared washers, which are the ones that have the little studs on them, and they fit inside the main gear. Show you the materials made in this reel. Beautiful reel all around. Put it all back together again. We have our free spool now. Time to give it the final test. Let's bring it over into gear. And well, what more can be said? It's just a beautiful operating reel all around. Turns free and easy. Great reel for fishing. This one's ready to go fish for a long time to come. I hope you've enjoyed that. I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, and rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. And I want to thank you, the viewer, for watching and for commenting and for keeping this channel vibrant and helping to teach others how to service the reels themselves and how to give reels a second chance. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.